Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz, and this is Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over the MLB games scheduled for Saturday, May 13th, 2023. Now, if you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below, and if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at the premium picks tab at pickdawgz.com. Alrighty, we got a loaded card for Saturday. Here are the games. First up, we see the Tampa Bay Rays taking on the New York Yankees. Going to be a 1:05 Eastern start time. Shane McClanahan and Nestor Cortez, two lefties on the mound. And this one, both teams are hitting lefties very well in the last few weeks or so. When you look at the Yankees, a lot of their good numbers against lefties came against the Oakland Athletics pitching staff, which we know, a lot of lefties in that rotation that have struggled so far this year. But now you're the Yankees facing one of the best lefties in baseball in McClanahan, who's 7-0 with a 1.76 ERA. While the Rays, like I mentioned, both teams hitting well against lefties. The Rays are number 2 in baseball in team OPS and number 2 in isolated power against those lefties with 11.9% walk percentage. So even better numbers than the Yankees against those left-handers. Nestor Cortez has not really been too sharp this year, a 4.74 ERA. His control's been off at times. His strikeout numbers have kind of been all over the place. He's giving up a lot of base runners. We even saw his last game where his final line really wasn't that bad. 5 innings, 2 earned runs. He gave up 2 walks. He had 6 base hits allowed. The Oakland A's had bases loaded, nobody out at one point, so they really could have did a lot of damage there. We know the Oakland A's are not really one of the better lineups in baseball, but the Rays, if they get those opportunities, they can really make Cortez and the Yankees pay. I like McClanahan on the mound here. I'm going to take the Tampa Bay Rays on the money line. In our next game, we see the Cincinnati Reds taking on the Miami Marlins. Nick Lodolo and Sandy Alcantara are your projected starters. We see a low total in this game, I think for good reason. I like the under here. Nick Lodolo, I expect a bounce-back spot for him. Against the Marlins, a team that's hit lefties pretty well in 2023, but their power numbers aren't the best, especially in the last few weeks, and that's been the big thing that Lodolo has struggled with, is giving up the home run ball. He's been able to miss bats, he's been able to earn strikeouts, but he's given up a lot of home runs as of late. Now, when you're pitching at Great American Ballpark, which is one of the more hitter-friendly parks in baseball where we see a ton of home runs hit, that's going to be a problem that a lot of pitchers face. We saw it with Hunter Green last year as well. So pitching now here on the road at a pitcher-friendly ballpark in Lone Depot, I do think Lodolo can give the Reds 5, 6, maybe more strong innings here. And Sandy Alcantara, he's had mixed results so far in 2023. Not the start that we expected from him after he won the Cy Young last year. But still, I think he's the best starter in this rotation by far. He's facing a Reds team, an offense that has not done too well away from home, especially against right-handed pitchers. So I think both starters can put together quality starts, and it is going to be a low-scoring game overall. So give me the under in Cincinnati, Miami. Next up, we see the Seattle Mariners taking on the Detroit Tigers. Bryce Miller and Alex Faedo are your starters in this one. Now, you never want to overreact too much to a starter's first few games and first few outings at the big league level. Bryce Miller has been excellent so far in his first 2 games against the Astros and the Athletics. 2 weak lineups against right-handed pitchers, but he's gone 12 innings, 6 innings each of those starts, only 2 base hits in each of those games, and only 1 earned run combined in those 2 starts with 15 strikeouts, only 1 walk, and no home runs. Now, you're facing a Detroit Tigers team that's also not the best against right-handed pitchers. So, for me, I think Bryce Miller can still put together a good outing here. And for me, the Mariners have struggled against left-handed pitchers. They haven't really been that great against righties either, but they're certainly putting together better at-bats. They're getting on base via the walk a lot more against those right-handed pitchers. I do think they can get to Faedo here early on, and even if this is a close game late, or even if the Tigers take the lead early on, I think the Mariners have a big advantage in the bullpen in this game, one of the best bullpens in baseball. So I'm going to take the Seattle Mariners here on the money line. I think they get the job done. Next up, we see the Chicago Cubs taking on the Minnesota Twins. Hayden Wesneski and Joe Ryan are your starters. I think Joe Ryan's last start against the Guardians was a bit of an unlucky one. Gave up a lot of ground ball singles in that game. I think he bounces back here. He still pitched pretty well in that game overall. I think he pitches well here against the Chicago Cubs offense that's not been as strong in the last couple of weeks against righties as they were at the beginning of the season. On the other side, Hayden Wesneski, although he had a rough start to the year, he's been pitching a lot better as of late. Now his ERA below 4 on the season. Facing a Twins team, it's been very inconsistent offensively. They have pretty good power numbers in the last couple of weeks, but their OPS and strikeout numbers are some of the worst in baseball against right-handed pitchers. So I think Wesneski was in really good form going into this game. I think he puts together another strong outing. Both of these bullpens are solid, so I'm going to take the under in the Cubs-Twins ballgame. Next up, we see the Atlanta Braves taking on the Toronto Blue Jays. Bryce Elder and Jose Barrios are your starters. Jose Barrios is pitching at home at the Rogers Center. He's been very sharp at home this season. We saw it last year as well, much better numbers at home. This season, in 28 and a third innings away from home, a 6.67 ERA. At home in 12 innings, 15 strikeouts, a .75 ERA, and an opponent's batting average below 190. So, the Braves are a very tough matchup here, but I do think Barrios is good enough in this spot for the Blue Jays to back him up offensively. Bryce Elder, 4 walks in his last start. He was off to a really good start this year, and he still has a 1.74 ERA. But I do think there's some regression concerns in his game. Last year really wasn't the strongest starter in this Braves rotation. I like the Blue Jays matchup here against them. They've been pretty solid against right-handed pitchers, even though they have better numbers against lefties. I think they can get to Elder here early on. So give me the Toronto Blue Jays at a really good price on the money line at home. Next up, we see the New York Mets taking on the Washington Nationals. No official starter for the Mets right now. We should see Trevor Williams going for Washington. I am seeing Joey Lucchesi listed on ESPN for the Mets, so he could very well be the starter. And if that is the pitching matchup in this one, I think we're going to see a high-scoring game, just like we saw in the same pitching matchup on April 27th, a 9-8 final score in favor of the Mets. The Mets offense has been inconsistent, but they were able to get to Williams the first time they faced him. They know quite a bit about Williams, and he went 5 innings, 9 base hits, 4 earned runs, and a homer in that game. Lucchesi struggled as well, giving up 3 earned runs and a homer to Washington on the other side. The Nationals hit lefties very well. Their power numbers have also improved quite a bit in the last couple of weeks. They don't strike out much against lefties, so neither bullpen I really trust. Neither starting pitching option I really trust. Even though the Mets offense has been inconsistent, I think we're going to see a high-scoring game here. So give me the over with the lean to the Nationals at plus money. I think there's some value here. I think they're going to be able to get to Lucchesi if he is in fact the starter. Give me the over in Mets Nationals. Next up, we see the Texas Rangers taking on the Oakland Athletics. We're going to see J.P. Sears and John Gray on the mound in this one. I had my concerns with John Gray going into his last start, but he really put together a sharp performance. 7 innings of 1-run ball. It was basically one mistake pitch to Ty France for an opposite field home run, and he had 8 strikeouts in that game, no walks, and a 2-1 Rangers win. That makes it back-to-back starts now for Gray that the Rangers have won the game in the end. And they're facing J.P. Sears, who was pitching pretty well, but in his last start gave up 5 earned runs and 3 home runs to the New York Yankees and 4 strikeouts in 5 1/3 innings. He's facing a Rangers team that's not right now 3rd in baseball in team OPS and 7th in isolated power against lefties in the last 2 weeks, with an 11.9% walk percentage to go with it, 2nd best in the league. I just can't back Sears in this one. Give me the Texas Rangers on the money line on the road. Next up, we see the Boston Red Sox taking on the St. Louis Cardinals. We're going to see Steven Matz and Chris Sale on the mound in this one. I'm going to go with a little bit of a contrarian play on the under in this game, as you got 2 starting pitchers with ERAs. Steven Matz at 5.7, Chris Sale 6.37. The game's at Fenway Park. There's 2 lineups that on paper are pretty solid. You'd think the over would be the play, and we're going to see a steep total in this game. But I think we're getting some value on the under, as you got 2 lineups that have not been great against lefties in the last couple of weeks. The St. Louis Cardinals are dead last in baseball in isolated power against lefties, 27th in the league in team OPS. The Boston Red Sox, although they've been very good against righties, they have not been that great against lefties. They're 20th in the league in team OPS in the last 2 weeks. Their isolated power numbers even worse at 26th in baseball, and their strikeout percentage a lot higher against lefties than it's been against righties. Chris Sale's last game, he went 6 innings, 3 earned runs, 10 strikeouts. That's a quality start for Sale. Back to the start before that, 6 1/3, 1 earned run, 5 strikeouts, another quality start. I think he could put together his 3rd straight quality start in this game, while Steven Matz, his first time ever, he gave up only 1 earned run in 5 1/3 this season against the Detroit Tigers. No walks allowed in that game. It was really just one mistake pitch where he gave up a home run, but he was pretty solid. It was definitely his best outing of the year against Detroit, and we just mentioned the Detroit Tigers hitting lefties very well in 2023 and very well in the last couple of weeks. So I think both of these pitchers do enough here to keep this game under the total. 2 solid bullpens, I think underrated bullpens as well. So give me the under in St. Louis, Boston. Next up, we see the Los Angeles Angels taking on the Cleveland Guardians. Reed Detmers and Cal Quantrill are your starters. I'm looking to fade Cal Quantrill here, and I do think Reed Detmers is a lot better than his current ERA, so I like the Angels in this spot on the money line at a pretty good price. Reed Detmers, his last 2 starts, no home runs allowed in each of those games. It's a positive sign for him. He had some issues with the home run ball this season, but his last 8 1/3 innings, 13 strikeouts. Although the earned runs have still been there, I think Detmers can bounce back and pitch pretty well against the Guardians team as 30th and 29th in team OPS and isolated power against lefties in the last 2 weeks. Cal Quantrill on the other side put together a strong outing in his last game against the Twins, but he only had 4 strikeouts in 7 innings. He walked 3 batters. He gave a hit by pitch. He had the bases loaded, nobody out at one point. The Twins just could not do anything with runners in scoring position in that game. And, overall, Cal Quantrill's got that 3.89 ERA, but a 5.29 xFIP, 5.17 expected ERA, and a 5.42 SIERA. So I think there's a lot of regression in his game. He hasn't been very sharp at progressive field this season. The Angels, when you look at their numbers against righties in the last couple of weeks, they've been very sharp, even better than lefties in the last couple of weeks. Third in baseball and isolated power, third in team OPS. I like their chances here to get to Quantrill early and often. Give me the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim on the money line. Next up, we see the Pittsburgh Pirates taking on the Baltimore Orioles. We're going to see Rowanzi Contreras and Tyler Wells on the mound in this game. Not my favorite game on the board because I just don't love the price, but I'd have to take the Orioles on the money line until Pittsburgh puts together a consistent offensive showings where we can trust this lineup again. At the beginning of the season, the Pirates' offense was one of the best in baseball. Then they went through a really tough stretch and a big losing streak where they just weren't scoring a lot of runs. You're facing a solid pitcher in Tyler Wells. He's got 3.15 ERA. I do think there's some regression concerns in his game. He's given up a lot of home runs as of late, but Rowanzi Contreras is not really in good form going into this start. His last 10 and a third innings giving up 9 earned runs, 2 home runs, and 7 walks to the Blue Jays and Rays. Those are very strong lineups, but the Orioles are also a pretty solid lineup themselves in the American League East this season. So with Contreras' struggles, I'm going to side with Wells and the Orioles in this game on the money line. Next up, we see the Kansas City Royals taking on the Milwaukee Brewers. We're going to see Zach Greinke and Adrian Hauser on the mound in this one. Now, I love backing Zach Greinke when he's pitching at Kauffman Stadium. We saw it in his last game where he was just good enough against the White Sox at home. A 12-5 win for the Royals. 5 2/3 innings, 3 earned runs. You'll take that all day long from Greinke. And the previous start at home against the Orioles, 5 innings, shutout baseball in a 6-0 win for the Royals. But now, Greinke is back on the road. He's facing a tough Brewers lineup against righties, and Greinke's got a 9.22 ERA away from home, 13 2/3 innings this season, 6 home runs allowed away from home. Can't trust him in this game. Got to side with the Brewers. I'd also lean towards the over. I do think the Royals can put up a little bit of a fight offensively, but I do think Adrian Hauser overall, not a bad option for this Brewers rotation. 4 2/3 innings his last start, 5 strikeouts, and a 7-3 Brewers win. Give me the Brewers and the over in this Royals-Brewers matchup. Next up, we see the San Diego Padres taking on the Los Angeles Dodgers. Joe Musgrove and Julio Urias on the mound in this one. Now, I've been a critic of Julio Urias at spots this season, but he's been really sharp at home. So for me, I got to back the Dodgers in this game. He's got a 1.82 ERA in his home innings this season, 24 2/3 innings, 28 strikeouts, a very low opponent's batting average of 205. Now, on the road, Urias has got a 6.1 ERA, 20 2/3 innings, a 3.10 opponent's batting average with 5 home runs allowed. So when he's on the road, we'll look to fade him. But at Dodger Stadium, he's been razor sharp. Joe Musgrove, he pitched pretty well in that last start against the Dodgers. 5 innings, only 1 unearned run, no earned runs in that game. He had 3 walks, which is a little bit concerning, but he had 5 strikeouts as well. I think Musgrove could pitch pretty well in this game, but if this is a close game late, the Dodgers bullpen's been much better, much more trustworthy than the Padres bullpen has been this season. I think the Dodgers bats are also a lot more trustworthy than San Diego's as well. So give me the Dodgers at a pretty reasonable price with Urias on the mound and on the money line. Next up, we see the Houston Astros taking on the Chicago White Sox. Dylan Cease and Brandon Bielak are your starters. For me, if Dylan Cease doesn't pitch well in this game and the White Sox don't grab the W, I'd be really concerned about Cease and Chicago going forward. As Dylan Cease, we faded him a few times this season, even his last start against the Royals, where he gave up those 7 earned runs in 5 innings of work. He's given up a lot of sharp contact this year, but he's also had a lot of tough matchups. He's faced the Royals, which are a very sneaky team against right-handed pitchers. The Twins have a lot of power in their lineup. The Rays back-to-back starts. We know that's not ever easy. The Orioles, also a solid team there. The Twins again. The Giants hit righties well. But he also faced these Houston Astros at the beginning of the season, a team that struggled mightily against right-handed pitchers this year. In the last 2 weeks alone, the Astros are 29th in baseball in team OPS and 27th in isolated power against righties, and they struggled quite a bit against Cease in that first start. 6 1/3 innings, 10 strikeouts for Cease in a 3-2 White Sox win. You're facing Brandon Bielak, who's not really my favorite starter to back. His first game, his strikeout numbers were great. His second game, 4 2/3 innings, no strikeouts, 10 base hits allowed, a home run as well, 2 walks to go with it. The White Sox should have plenty of opportunities with base runners in scoring position in this game to back up Dylan Cease in the run support department early on. Give me the Chicago White Sox on the money line with Cease on the bump. Next up, we see the San Francisco Giants taking on the Arizona Diamondbacks. We're going to see Anthony DeSclafani and Zach Gallen on the mound. Two starting pitchers with sub-3 ERAs so far this season, but I still think this is a pitching mismatch in favor of the Diamondbacks, with Gallen is 4-0 with a .33 ERA in his 27 1/3 innings at Chase Field at home this season. 41 strikeouts, only 2 walks, and no home runs allowed. He has been unbelievable at home this season. The Giants are a strong lineup against righties, but I still think they're going to struggle in this game against Gallen. And Anthony DeSclafani, he may have been tipping his pitches in the beginning of his last start against the Nationals. It was his worst start of the season by far, and he still went 7 innings in that game. But he gave up 10 base hits and 5 earned runs, a lot of singles in that one, but still a lot of line drives given up to the Nationals. I have my concerns with this game. I still think it's going to be a low-scoring game overall where both pitchers pitch well. But if I had to choose a side, it would be the Arizona Diamondbacks for sure, laying the run line. So give me Arizona on the run line, laying the 1.5 runs, and a lean towards the under in this game as well. And the final game for Saturday's card in Major League Baseball, it's the Philadelphia Phillies and the Colorado Rockies. And it's going to be Ranger Suarez and Ryan Feltner on the mound. And this one, never easy making your season debut at Coors Field. Most pitchers don't have to do so unless they're Colorado Rockies. But, Ranger Suarez, 3 rehab outings in the minor leagues, 2 of those in AAA Lehigh Valley, 1 of those in AA Reading. He pitched pretty well in those games. He didn't really have a ton of strikeouts. In 9 innings, only 5 strikeouts. But he limited, the home run, didn't give up a single home run, only 1 earned run. He kept the ball on the ground. We know Ranger Suarez, not really a strikeout guy, more of a ground ball pitcher, can get those double plays, which can be pretty handy at Coors Field. We know the elevation really helps the hitters, but Ranger Suarez pitched once at Coors Field in his career. He went 3 scoreless innings, so I think he could pitch pretty well in this game for the Phillies. And Ryan Feltner's been tough to read this season, but still an ERA above 5 overall. I do think the Phillies can get to him for a few runs early on. He gave up 4 earned runs in his last game with 6 walks against the New York Mets, so his control's been off. The Phillies have been pretty good against righties for the most part this season. So give me the Philadelphia Phillies on the run line because the money line price is a little bit too out of hand. Give me the Phillies on the run line. And that's it. Those are the games for Saturday in Major League Baseball. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. And don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pick Dawgz Premium. As always, this is Ron Romanelli. Good luck.